Welcome back everybody. Today we're gonna play Cypher on Corrode. Today is day 165 of playing every agent on every map. Today's agent Cypher is in my opinion one of the best agents at holding map space. A map like Corrode that is pretty big, where you kind of need that, is a pretty good map for a Cypher, and in general you can use him pretty well on a map like Corrode. Other than that, I still think Cypher's cam has a lot of potential, and you can also get a lot of information on defense and on attack, and if you use Cypher's cages right, you can even kind of entry with a Cypher, even though he's not really meant for that. Starting off with A-side defense. On A-side defense, in the beginning of the round or before the round even starts, you can place your cam on top of the entrance right here on A, just like you would do in, for example, on B side of a Senti. And like that, you also have a cam that gives you information over people coming in, information over the mid-link area, and also kind of some information over site. This is a cam you can use pretty well, and you can get a lot of information with a cam like this. Other than that, there's a lot of options for trips you can use in main. For example, this one that kind of blocks up of the deeper area where people can come through. This trip is jumpable, just keep that in mind, but it is still a pretty unexpected trip. Then another trip I really like is one like this. This one is a kill trip, meant for people to walk in. Again, it is pretty easy jumpable, but it is still a pretty good trip. Then you can also have just an information trip, which people can't really jump. If you place it all the way in between, if you find the right spot. Right here, this trip is pretty hard to shoot. It is shootable if you come from the right spot. Like here, you can see you can shoot this. Same thing also from the other side. But it makes it pretty easy for you to get a kill off of it. For example, you can just hold people walking up here, trying to go for a destroy on the trip. Other than that, using trips all along this wall can be pretty good. Like that, you can get information over people coming in. And also, if you have an Odin, you can play on the side and just wait for somebody to walk in your trip and get kills like that. Another thing that you can do, and that is actually one of the more interesting trips I found, is one like this. It is not the best trip, but if people are walking over towards elbow, this trip will catch them most likely because it's kind of a weird trip. They're never going to see this side, so they're probably not going to shoot it. They might shoot this side, but if they are like walking like this, walking into it, you can get a free kill through this wall if you have a sheriff, or even if you have an Odin to shoot, and you can get a free kill. Other than that, something I really like doing is placing trips on this side here as well, behind these boxes. Also trips like these, or even trips like these to kind of stop the enemies from pushing or splitting towards from mid, or even trips from over here you can use like this or like this. This is not the greatest trip, but it is a trip that you can use from time to time. Also, using trips on this elbow area can also be pretty effective to kind of either get information or to catch people off guard while they are trying to come in with a trip like this, or even a trip from this rubble right here that is kind of going up. This again is not the greatest trip, but if people are trying to get away from you pushing the elbow area, they're most likely gonna walk in, and again you can shoot at them pretty easily with, for example, a sheriff. Another thing that is pretty strong on the Cypher is that you can kind of spam areas based on your cage. I'm pretty sure that you can also get a cage into here that kind of works as a one-way. I haven't found a lineup for that yet myself, but if you find one that will land on top here, you will have an easy one-way on the people that are coming in. Or if you find one that lands a little bit deeper, like for example here, you have a pretty good one-way on the people that are coming in. If you're, for example, playing on the elbow area, you can get an easy kill like that on the enemies. Other than that, just using any of these trips can be pretty good. Or again, walk through the map, just check out different spots where you can place a trip. For example, like shovels, or like anything with an angle can work sometimes. Even here, for example, a trip like this, just use your trips in a lot of different ways, making sure the enemies don't really expect you when you're using your trips there, and making it really hard for the enemies to guess where you are. Now switching over towards mid, and on mid you have the option to place an information trip, just like a trip like this. This one tends to get shot pretty often because it is in a pretty open spot, but you can also use like a trip here that gets shot a little less often because it's kind of doesn't really get seen, or even place it a little bit higher, making it harder for the enemies to kind of see it right away. Or you can also use your cam in mid, for example up here, you have to get here, get information over people coming in, or even placing a cam all the way up here can give you a lot of information over people coming in. Also have a pretty good spot for your cam where it doesn't really get shot that often. And now switching over towards B already. For B, it's pretty similar. You can stop the enemies with an information trip like this, or you can use trips in a lot of areas. For example, here. Trip I also really like is one like this, making it pretty hard to get shot. Or also trips like these to kind of stop the enemies from coming in. or even trips like these to make it really hard for the enemies to go for a plant. With all of those trips, you can pretty much play with them with an Odin. For example, somebody walks in there, or even here, shooting them through the edge of this wall, making sure you do a lot of damage to them. Other than that, also playing from heaven is a pretty good idea, and from heaven you can play some pretty good camps, for example, all the way up here, making it able for you to kind of see the enemies entering and also kind of having a one-way. Other than that, also a cam up here can work pretty well. Being able to see the enemies as they're coming in. This cam gets shot pretty often though. Or one last cam that I actually really like as well is this cam. You get a lot of information over the site, you also get information over mid, and in general it makes it pretty hard for the enemies to come in. Again, you can also probably place a one-way up here. I haven't really tried that. If you get it onto the right spot, you will be able to have a one-way, but again, you would need a lineup for that. And for example, one way like this can be played on from over on this side, or if you place it a little lower, for example, right here, you can play from it in a lot of different ways, making it really hard for the enemies to come in. And if you have a consistent lineup for these spots, you can use that pretty well to stop the enemies kind of from coming in. With one ways like that, it makes it really hard for the enemies to kind of come in. Even if you use one like this one, it's gonna be pretty hard for the enemies to get in, and also you can kind of stall out the enemies for a pretty long time. Now switching over towards attack. And on attack, on a side, you can use a trip like this right here to kind of get your flank information. Make sure nobody's coming from behind, and make sure this trip is kind of straight. If you place it like I just did, you can see people can jump over. If you place it on this wall, that happens pretty often. But if you place it on the other wall right here, that will not happen at all. And like that, you can have an easy trip, nobody can jump over. Unless they have like an Omen TP or something like that. The other option is to also place a similar trip towards mid like this, to kind of give you an earlier information over people trying to push down mid. Other than that, what you can also do is to use a cam like this to get yourself early information over main if somebody's trying to push. Same thing also with a cam like this. This cam is not the greatest one, but it will get shot less often and will make it easier for you to claim the space around the door. Other than that, once you have taken this space, you can go in with your team, cage off one side, and focus more on the other side. Same thing also with here, you can throw a cage here. This cage will have a gap on one side, just making it pretty hard for you to kind of smoke all of it, but you will be able to kind of get the space like this as well. What you can also do, by the way, you can also do that on defense, is to throw a cam inside of this hole, kind of get information over site and people playing there. This camp gets shot pretty often, but it can work sometimes. Other than that, taking the elbow area is a pretty good idea, and then using cages like right here, if you don't have a smoke, is also a pretty good idea. You can also use a trap right here to kind of make it hard for the enemies to come in. Other than that, if you have taken the space already, you can also use trips right here to kind of stop the enemies from coming in as well, making it pretty hard for them to go for a retake. This can also be pretty good if you, for example, are on an eco and have a sheriff and you see somebody trying to go for a play on you. Other than that, once you have planted the spike, you can also throw your cages on top of the spike to have an easy post-plant spam. Like that, you can throw a cage and then use your Odin or Sheriff to spam through the wall, making sure to hit the players that are trying to go for the defuse. Just make sure that you spam high enough so your bullets will go through. And like that, you can get an easy post-plant on the enemies without the enemies really having a chance to go for a defuse, because you can just spam with your Odin. Another thing that can help you a lot while spamming with your Odin is throwing a cage and then hiding behind. Getting a spam off like that, or having trips in front of you that will protect you if you want to go for a spam. Also, the other option, if you have planted up here, you can also spam through this wall, by the way, making it pretty easy for you to play post-plant, just spamming right here and then having a trip to kind of protect you. This is gonna be pretty cringe for the enemies, but it will kind of net you some rounds. Also, combined with that, you can also use a cam that is placed somewhere inside, kind of get you even more information. Or even mark with a cam, and then you will be able to spam through the walls with your marked. The other option that you have is to go through mid as a lurk. If you want to go through mid as a lurk, I'd recommend that you kind of still have a flank trip to kind of protect you from the A side or from the B side, depending on where your teammates are going. And then you can use a cam right here in mid to kind of get information over people playing on top. You can then also kind of peek out, even pre-fire, or use cages like these, throwing them pretty high up, kind of blocking off your vision, walking up even further, using a cage like this, and then focusing more on the people here close. or even going up top mid and kind of lurk like that. If you want to have a flank trip that is over towards B, you can use a pretty simple one like this. Get here, place it at around head level. It's not going to be chompable, and it's going to make it pretty easy for you to kind of have a safe flank. If you're going B with your team, you can use the cam up here to kind of stop the enemies from peeking you aggressive here early. You will be able to see them, and then you can even spam them through this wall if you have a sheriff or a node. Other than that, taking the site with your team is a pretty good idea, and then using cages towards backside to kind of block off that area. This will allow the enemies from backside to kind of cross over and peek you from this side and get into a different spot, but it can also kind of help you protect you when you are going in. The other really good thing is when you're, for example, on Nick around, you can use cages like these. One cage, checking the close corners, use a second cage, walk in, focusing more on the people on elbow, and giving yourself closer heights. Other than that, if you have your cam again, you can use your cam like this, kind of get information over site, or you can even use it on top of the spike or in a close area to the spike to kind of make sure nobody can go for defuse. Also, again, using your cam to mark the plant spot can be pretty good, and then spamming on this area. Especially if you have planted right here, you have an easy time spamming through and see exactly where the enemies are. Also, using your trips to kind of stop the enemies from coming in again can be pretty good. Same thing also here on CT, and maybe even on Heaven, but on Heaven I don't really recommend it most of the times. If I had to give Cypher a rating from S to F, I'd actually give him the A tier. Cypher allows you to hold a lot of space with his cam and also with his trips, but in general I think his trips can be broken pretty easily, and if you play it right you can play it pretty well against the Cypher. Cypher still has a lot of map information and can be played off in a lot of different ways, and I still think Cypher can be used pretty well on the map like Corrode. That would be it from me. If you want to see any other agent on any other map, write it down in the comments, and if you want to see anything else fun related, write it down there as well. And as always, don't forget to like and sub, and come say hi to me on Twitch where I stream almost daily. Have a great rest of your day, and see you guys very soon. Bye!